Hello and welcome to Big Bandit Gaming. I'm your host Troy, and today we have Josh.
Yeah.
Colton.
Welcome to the future.
And Izayah.
And I need chapstick.
Wow.
Hey.
Opening with a bang. Well, how you guys all doing?
I've been eyeing Hi-Fi for a while. It just came out recently, and I'm looking at it real hard. Hi-Fi Rush, that new game.
Ooh, oh, High Five. I thought I heard you say high five. I was like, what is he talking about?
I've played like 3 hours of that game so far.
How's it looking for you, Josh?
It's looking like it could easily end up in my favorites of this year. I know that sounds crazy, but I'm liking it a lot.
That excites me. I'm looking at these clips. I'm looking at people's reaction. It's looking mighty positive, mighty fun. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I played about 30, 45 minutes, and I was just really impressed with the visuals. Like, it pops.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what they did, but like that, they're doing like the Into the Spider-Verse kind of lower frame rate thing, but everything is just animated so well. Yeah, that game was cool.
It's like Into the Spider-Verse minus the comic book flair, which is not bad. It's just more like cartoony feeling than it is like illustrations.
Yeah, and since it was shadow dropped, it's not like there's a ton of reviews out, so you're just going by vibes, and the vibes are good.
Yeah,
the vibes are very good. Everyone I've heard that is, talk about it who's played it already are very into it. So I'm like, okay, like that is a game I want to play. I hear it's not like super long either, maybe like about 15 hours. So I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Spot.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of where I am with the bosses, and I think they kind of show you like who you're going to be fighting along the way at the beginning. So that makes sense.
Yeah, I was not expecting a shadow drop of that caliber, so it was a cool surprise.
Nice.
And for those of you who don't know, High Five announced at the Xbox showcase a few days ago from Tango Gameworks. It's like a rhythm character action game platformer sort of thing. Yeah. It's a lot of different things, but it works way better than you think it would. And I was a little worried when I saw the trailer because it was, I don't know, like the dialogue and snippets were like, oh, this could be kind of cringe, but in context, it actually works pretty well.
Oh yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. And I'm just surprised it's coming from this studio because everything from this studio so far has just been like, man, this looks really cool, but a little clunky. But yeah, I am looking forward to playing more of that. But otherwise, what else you guys been playing? Anything going on?
I just got off of Chivalry 2. That just played a little bit after work. I've actually been playing that quite a bit this week. Been meaning to ask for if you wanted to get on or something recently, but I've been playing a lot of that. It's been fun.
Nice. It is.
I've been getting better.
That's yeah. There's like a high skill ceiling to that game, but even if I don't know if I ever get super frustrated if I'm not playing well, because it's just ridiculous, and you're like, well, that just happened. Also, last time I played this, I don't know what happened. It must have been like a total glitch, but my character disappeared, and I was just like a floating sword. And clearly people could not see me and I could still attack them. And once they saw what to look for, like a floating sword, they started attacking me, but they couldn't tell when I was attacking. And it let me play for another 15 minutes like that, multiple deaths. Oh, and then I lost connection with the server and I'm like, man, I will never.
That's a feature, not a bug.
Yep. Yeah. That's I will never live through this greatness again. And I'm sad. But that game, I already forget. I was about to name it in my game of the year order, and I forgot where I put it. Maybe third or fourth. It was high. It was high.
It was pretty high
for a game I played way later on Game Pass. I only played the beta, never bought it, and then played it later. I'm like, yeah, okay, great game. All right. So are you guys ready to jump in?
Whoa! I just want to say real quick, I've been playing Fire Emblem Engage a little bit.
Oh.
And I don't know how I feel about it. This is kind of useless information. But I didn't play Three Houses. Oh. I've only really played Awakening and what's that other one on the DS?
God,
Fates, yeah.
Oh, I played a little bit of both of those, but mostly Awakening. So considering most people consider Awakening to be one of the best ones. I don't know if this is even attempting to live up to those heights, because I feel like a lot of things I like about Awakening just aren't present. But I've heard that they got rid of the triangle, the weapon triangle, and then brought it back for Engage.
Yeah,
which I don't know how Three Houses worked without the weapon triangle. That doesn't.
I'm trying to remember too. It made sense at the time, but I am trying to remember.
I'm also trying to remember, but
there was some sort of rotation, but it wasn't like the normal.
Okay. I heard it was just like each unit would just have like weaknesses and strengths, and I was like, that's super generic sounding.
Yeah, I didn't like it. I like the old weapon triangle.
Yeah, that sounds like a bummer. But yeah, they got rid of all the social stuff in Engage, which a lot of people liked. I don't think the gimmick in Engage.
They liked that they got rid of it, or they like, or
oh, sorry. Yeah, so like Three Houses, the reason why that one seemed to be popular is because you could do the kind of persona thing where you're like, oh, you talk to the different characters that are at the school and like.
They got rid of the monastery. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So all that extra monastery stuff, it's more just like, no, like you get to interact with your party members, but it's not like a whole nother game where you're spending like, an hour and a half, 2 hours in the monastery at a time.
I might like that better. To be honest.
Yes, that's why I'm interested.
It was so drawn out. I think in Three Houses, it kind of burned me out a little bit with all the time I spent not in battle. But
I want to say
none of it was as good as Persona either. That was a problem.
I think people are downplaying. Like I've heard it from a lot of people so far that you can get straight to the combat. Like there's not all this nonsense going on. It's like that's kind of true. But they kind of make you do really boring stuff if you want to like maximize like your efficiency in the game. Like, oh, just after combat, go talk to every character if you want to the stuff you need to like build more of the rings that like the emblems. I'm like, okay, so you go do that. Nobody says anything interesting, and then like, oh, go back to the like your headquarters or whatever. It's like the castle or where you awoke in the game. It's really silly. And you go to a bunch of little kind of just more talking to people just to get like minor things to then try to upgrade. You're just min-maxing. It's just a lot of like small things that they make you do the most boring things possible to upgrade your characters. And I think that's a real shame. So it's like, yes, you can skip all that and go straight to the combat. But if you do that and you're playing on a harder difficulty, then I think you're going to have a rough time. If you're playing on normal, I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, so play on normal. I started on hard, and I had that problem. I was like, if I want to get to the point, if I want to make it to the end, I'm going to have to do all these side things, and I don't want to do all this side stuff because it's just not interesting. So yeah, I dumbed it down to normal, and this is where I'm torn because it's almost too easy now. I don't think they have a good between normal and hard. There should be something there because normal feels very easy. Like I'm one-shotting everything, but in hard everything was like killing me super quickly. So
in Three Houses, I started on hard until it got to a point where I'm like, I can literally not win this battles. Like my characters literally do not do enough damage. And so I went back down to normal and it felt good, like balanced again. So you might have to do...
So that's actually what I did.
Yeah.
But then like 2 battles later, I was crushing everything.
Yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah,
so I'm a little... I'm kind of on the fence because I hear a lot of people talk about how great the combat is. So it's like maybe as I get further in, it's like it'll open up more. I don't think the engage gimmick is super interesting. It's really just a gimmick. It's basically like here's your character, and each character you can basically give it a super move. That's essentially the extent of it.
Yeah,
I don't.
The only reason I haven't jumped in is just because of the other releases around it. I think I'd rather play Hi-Fi Rush or 100%. Dead Space. Like I'm much more interested in that right now. But I am interested to check out Engage. Just not right now. It just came out a bad time, and I'm unsure too. Like Fire Emblems used to release, and every single one was like, "Oh man, home run!" And then after Awakening, it's been a little hit or miss for me with Fire Emblem. I'm
gonna say I spent $60 on it, and I wouldn't do it again. I'm not having $60 worth of fun so far, so keep that in mind.
Yeah. So I was a little worried about it, but it's really mixed though. Even if you look at the scores, like some people are really high on it, and some people are like, "Oh no, I miss the story and the stuff from from Three Houses." But I do. It's never hit the high Awakening hit. like, and we will obviously talk about that today, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So that leads us on to are you boys ready to get into the time machine?
Woo!
Yeah. Well, what shape time machine do you think we'd have for our podcast? I have an idea.
A dodecahedron.
I was thinking more like podular, like
Podular?
Wait, is that a word?
I don't even know if that's a word.
Considering our
Elliptical.
Considering our mascot is a raccoon, I was thinking be more a dumpster shape.
Oh,
Yeah.
dumpster.
Trash can, yeah.
Okay.
That's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, like a big green dumpster that flies through time.
My idea was looking at the events on our Google Doc. I immediately thought of like the Soulja Boy console. Looking at like
you want the console to be our time machine? The Soulja Boy console.
The Soulja Boy console.
I like that. Well, I mean, I've already made the executive decision. See, now I'm torn. The Soulja Boy console is very funny, but we're gonna stick with our dumpster themed time machine. So why don't you guys get in with me and let's get stinky.
To get stinky, exactly.
Yeah, heck yeah. Are you boys ready? Because we are going back to the year 2013. And before we jump into the games of 2013 and the gaming events that happened, I want to know, where were you guys in 2013? Kind of what was your situation?
10 years old.
10 years old. Say no more, Izayah.
playing like what, 300 hours into my DSA file of Kingdom Hearts Recoded.
Man.
And like watching Sonic X on the CW channel on Saturday mornings. That was my jam.
Wow.
See, wow. That you could have told me that's what you did last week, guys.
Yeah, it was true.
I believed you. Awesome. All right. What about you, Colton? Where were you in 2013?
That was my junior/senior year, so I was doing school stuff. But when I was not doing school stuff, I was at home. I was playing a lot of 2013. I was on my maybe 7th run of Fallout 3. I'm sure I did a lot of that.
Very nice.
And I mean, that I think I played a crap ton of my PS2, PS1, PS2, PS3 growing up. But that year, I think junior year and then the summer in between junior and summer, I think was like the first time in my life where I actually didn't play like constantly, like every day. Like there'd be like 4 or 5 days where like I didn't touch it. Like, I'd spent all day out at my mom's house with my brother, and we're like riding our freaking ripsticks through the neighborhood, and we'd get lost, And so I actually remember that year being not as heavy-handed with video games for me as it normally is. But I mean, there were obviously exceptions that came out the year, some of them that I played, but that's kind of where I was at.
Nice.
I'm on the same page as Colton. Obviously I guess obvious to us, we went to the same school, same grade. We had the same class, I think, engineering that year?
Yeah.
Senior year. Yeah.
Senior year, yeah. Later part of 2013.
Yeah, I guess in 2013, as far as gaming, I was probably playing like Dishonored, the first one. Maybe like Assassin's Creed 3, Borderlands 2. Yeah. Not any good games.
Nice.
No, I'm just kidding. I like Dishonored. Those other two get out of here.
Yeah.
What about you, Troy?
In 2013, so I was still in Colorado. I was maybe at the tail end of getting my respiratory therapy degree. But as soon as I figured out that I hated that, and I don't know why I went all the way through the schooling process, I had a lot of time on my hands this year. I was out of school, so I think I was working at a Starbucks, and I had just got my degree in respiratory therapy. So, I did a lot of gaming that year. This was not the year I took a break. This is the opposite. Looking down this list, I played a majority of these games.
My question is, when did you graduate? What was the year you graduated?
What? Yeah, high school.
Like high school. Yeah.
High school 2010.
Okay, so around that time, I think 2011, you told me, I think you told the other guys here, you had a whole year you just binged anime. So you,
Oh yeah, yeah. There was the year before. I think while I was in school, I did a lot more anime because it was like a lot less took a lot less focus, you know. So yes, that's all I did for a year. That would have been like 2011 or 12 or something, and then 2013.
So this is
back in
post
hard.
anime Troy. Okay.
Oh
So-
yes, oh yes.
and
Post.
pre anime was like Final Fantasy.
Pre-anime, yes, yeah. A lot of Japanese role-playing games were my entry drug to all that. But yeah, it was a good year, but it was like the last year I had in Colorado before I moved down to Texas. So yeah.
Every year was a binge year for Troy.
Honestly, yes. Until last year. I think last year is the least amount of video games I've ever played in my life. So, and that's just life stuff. It just happens. But awesome. So what we're going to do here is Josh made an exhaustive list of games and events that happened throughout 2013. So we're going to go in order here. And we're not going to go through every game on this list, but if something jumps out, I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Because a lot of these games I had played, like I played through Crysis 3. I have nothing to say about Crysis 3, for example, other than like, yep, it ran. I played it on PlayStation. So even the cool part of Crysis 3, which was it looking really nice, wasn't happening. So, but yeah, so let's jump in. So it's 2013, the new year, and we are in January. So looking at the events, it looks like THQ shut down that year. And I remember this pretty distinctly because I was listening to a lot of podcasts at that point, and this was kind of a big deal. Did you, I mean, you guys probably played THQ games, but a lot of people didn't know they were. Like, if you played any licensed games within the last like 5 years.
Darksiders was the one that I was going to say. Is like, I heard that THQ shut down. I was like, because Darksiders was one of my favorite series at the time. I should have mentioned that. Yeah, no. I was playing like Darksiders 2 around that time.
Yeah.
That was super sad.
Darksiders, their big stuff I remember back then was Darksiders, Saints Row, and I don't know what else. SpongeBob.
Yes, the Cosmic Shake. The Cosmic Shake.
Yes.
Are you smarter than the fifth grader?
Did they do Mafia, or am I tripping?
Ooh, that's 2K.
That's 2K. Okay. But yeah, I remember THQ shutting down. I remember a lot of people asking at this point, it's just like, oh my God, are games dying? Like
right.
are console gaming over? You know, are people buying enough games? Is everyone on their phones?
Yes.
Yes, but also we were in, to put it in perspective, at this point, we were like, what, 2006 was the 360? So we were coming into like our 7th year of this generation of consoles, and it was really long in the tooth. So
I forgot how long that PS3 gen was. 7.
Yeah. Well, and the PS3 and Wii came out in 2007, so like a year later. So technically it was 6 years for the PS3, but the 360 had been out at this point for 7 years. So yeah, it had been a while, and I feel like a lot of people were just like, new games were coming out and they weren't selling well. You know what I mean? Or they didn't sell as well as their sequel, and people were freaking out at this point. And that, I guess that'll lead us into when the new consoles come out, kind of the what my thoughts were and stuff. But yeah, THQ shutting down. They made a bunch of those like draw pads that really didn't help either.
What was that game?
Dude, I don't remember the name. I just remember hearing that they made like thousands of them that just sat on shelves. Was it U-Draw?
Draw, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. They made like a tablet game that was like a really expensive peripheral, and that they like banked a lot of their money on that, and that didn't work out.
Yeah, you nailed it. U-Draw. That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah, THQ shut down on the 23rd. And looking at the list here, what about any of those games stand out for you guys?
Heck yeah.
Well, I kind of like hear, Josh, I want you to point it out. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, you're gonna say Devil May Cry or DMC Devil May Cry, right?
Well, I wanted to like just call a little bit of attention to it and how bizarre it was, sort of like the reboot of the franchise and how that's kind of aged
But it wasn't
poorly.
by the same developer, right?
That was
No,
Ninja
it is
Theory.
Ninja Theory,
right?
that's right.
Yes.
I would say, yeah. Here,
No, wait, is that Team Ninja? I can never remember.
No, Team Ninja is the Japanese studio. I think Ninja Theory is they did.
Oh, so this was the
Japanese
enslaved
Sword
people?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it was. This was after Enslaved, I think. So this was their next game afterwards. And the thing I remember about this game is that the game itself was making fun of the fans who were like kind of upset about the changes, you know?
Mhm.
Like I remember the attitude of the game being really strange and kind of edgy. That game is super edgy. Oh my god. Not in a goofy way. Like old DMC is edgy in kind of its own like goofy like Japanese way, you know?
Yeah.
And this is just like of its era. Oh my god. I tried playing it. I didn't. I know people really liked the combat system, but I was never able to play all the way through it. So
Yeah, I've only played the mainline games and loved those, so I don't know if I'll ever be touching this one. But I definitely seen my fair share of content of this game to say, hey, I see the liking of it. I see why people can like it, this game, why I think fondly of it. But personally, just not to me. But I want to see, Josh, is the game you're gonna call out that third one right there?
Yeah, dude.
Go, I want to hear it.
Wrath of the White Witch. This game was what?
I didn't know that was the full title.
Wrath of the White Witch title, dude. This was like who was it? Level 5 partnered with studio. Is it Ghibli or Ghibli?
Ghibli. I say Ghibli.
Okay.
I'm a nerd.
Those famous animators across the pond, several ponds. I don't know how the geography works.
Skip across the stones of the pond.
A stunning game visually, like the
oh my god,
cutscenes, I guess,
great.
Were beautiful. The 3D models, it was
back
PS3.
then. I was gonna say back then they looked amazing.
True, they did. It was just unfortunately later this year we would get a better machine that I wish this game came out on.
Yeah. But Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch in 2013 in general, this is okay. So to put in perspective, Persona 4 Golden just missed 2013, and Xenoblade had, I think, already come out. But this is the year I was like, okay, JRPGs are back finally after like 6 or 7 years of subpar, like either subpar or just mobile games, like. This was one of the games that JRPG people are going to be like, oh my god, this is like super special. Fun fact, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch is originally a 3DS game. And there's a mechanic in the game where you have to flip through a book to look at like instructions and like clues. That book was a physical book for the 3DS version. And that's why that mechanic was in there. So the PS3 version of Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch is almost like a weird remake for the console version. But yeah, so that's just a weird side note. But thing about Ni no Kuni, which is wild, it's one of those JRPGs where you beat the game, or you think you're about to beat the game, like. And then there's just like a whole nother game behind it.
Yeah.
You're just like, what just happened? And it's oddly like somber in tone, even like from the beginning. I think spoilers for Ni no Kuni. It's like the very beginning. But like the whole premise of Ni no Kuni is that your mom dies and you're kind of responsible for it. All over this like young kid. And his tears make this like this stuffed animal come to life, Mr. Drippy. And Mr. Drippy takes him into like this other world where he becomes like a hero and kind of like has to deal with like the guilt, and it's not as heavy-handed as it sounds, and it doesn't land on everything, but like halfway through the game too, like something really dark happens and you're like, what is this game? But yeah, real Dragon Quest vibes all over it. But the art style and is this is the one that Ghibli worked directly with them. So the actual like hand-drawn cutscenes were all done by them and they look amazing to this day. Like you said, Josh, the models are a little simpler little simple compared to today's standards, but I think they still hold up, and that game still holds up. And I wish I could say the same thing about every Ni no Kuni game past this one.
True. I was gonna say, unlike you, Troy, I'm not really big on JRPGs in general. I didn't really grow up playing them. This was the first JRPG that I really stuck with and like saw through to the end.
Wow.
And it became like one of my all-time favorite games.
Yeah, I remember you talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
Shut up.
It's all you ever talked about for like a year.
It's great, dude.
You're talking about it now. Dude, God.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome game. It had a real hype behind it. Like there was a really big hype cycle, and it was really good to see it sell well and do well and get critically, like just it's just a good JRPG in a time and a whole generation of pretty much bad ones, honestly. So yeah. All right. Let's move on to February, guys. So this is a special month because this was our first taste of the next generation of consoles.
It's good.
And yeah, this is February 20th through 22nd, it says. But Sony's 8th generation console, the PlayStation 4, is revealed. Did you guys watch this like live or around the time it came out?
Did not watch it live. I think I watched. It was like 2 days later. I was like, oh, finally, I'm around the internet. I can watch this now. I did not have internet at the time at my house, so
yeah. Because at this point, this was like peak in my podcast gaming era, and for just like a year and a half, people would not stop talking about the Orbis. I think it was called the Orbis. That was the code name for it.
Cool.
So this was like this was a long time coming. What?
You just blew my tiebreaker for the freaking game at the end.
What did I do?
That was my tiebreaker for the game.
That's hilarious.
You should have. Congratulations.
And I think was the Xbox the Durango? Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good job, Troy.
I didn't know this.
I remember that because literally for 2 years straight, that's like anytime the next generation would come up, they would say the Orbis or the Durango, and we finally got our taste of it. Well, you'll have some time to research. Hopefully, no one ties. Hopefully, no one ties. That's funny. But yeah, this event I thought was really cool. This is where they showed the controller, and at this point I had both the 360 and PS3 for quite a while, and I knew I was like, man, the triggers on the PS3 suck so hard. That controller is not good, man. A whole generation of shooting with R1 and L1 with bumpers instead of triggers. And when they showed that controller, I was like, oh my god, it's beautiful. And then when I saw hands-on previews and they're like, it's good. It's good.
Yes,
I was like, oh, thank you. But yeah, seeing Mark Cerny get up there and do his thing, but the only thing is they didn't show the console. We still had no idea what the box looked like, and I remember that was a point of contention when, like, for like at this point, like this is still console war era for sure between these two. And that was like what a lot of people are like, well, I can't wait for the Xbox one where they'll actually show the console at the console reveal, And to their credit, they did. But man, that reveal, we'll get to that. But yeah, I remember this is where they showed Knack. I'm trying to remember what else they showed, but it was like a lot of tech demo stuff. Knack. Oh, the Killzone demo, the Killzone Shadowfall demo. And I remember that looked amazing. Like that blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, that looks so good. Later to find out that for a pretty mid game, that game's pretty mid. That game might be under mid, but yeah. So I remember that event pretty fondly. It kind of kicked off the next generation, and it was really cool. What anything else to say about that you guys remember?
I liked the PS4.
I love the PS4. He's my favorite.
I also loved the PS4.
It made me turn from Xbox kid to like PlayStation. All hands on deck. I am a fan, bro. Like from the 360 to PS3 and PS4, I was like, bro, I'm good. Yeah, I don't need to go back. I'm completely fine with this.
I was already convinced at this point because I had an Xbox 360 for a while, and then I got a PS3 because I really wanted to play Ratchet and Clank because those are my favorite PS2 games. And so I was already like primed for the PS4. And whenever they showed that controller, I was like, oh, thank God. Like my only complaint with the PS3 was that controller. So I was like, oh, well, they fixed all my problems.
Yeah. The design of the actual console, it's perfect in my opinion.
We didn't see it at this point.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
We
didn't show it till E3. I'm with you guys. I was a PS3. Like I chose the PS3 I was late into the generation. I didn't get a console till 2009. But I ended up with a PS3 and then later a 360, and PS3 was like my main console.
Okay.
And now looking back, like now that I get to see like performance videos and seeing like ports and stuff, I'm like, man, I probably should have played that on an Xbox.
Yeah,
that probably ran really well. But PS3, I think they were really cultivating their like first party studios, and it really didn't hit till the end of the generation. But like all the exclusives, even if they didn't sell well, I just love the fact that they were doing it. And at the end of the 360 generation, they were all in on apps, like advertising. And that would obviously end up being what the Xbox One's downfall. But even at the end of the 360, they were not talking about new IP or anything like that. You know, they were still on a Halo, Gears, Forza kick at the very end. And they're almost they're trying to fix it, but almost 10 years later, and that's still almost what it feels like.
Yeah,
they're still trying to recover from that. But the 360, they were on top, and it was theirs to lose, and that was the first shot fired was this reveal. So let's look at some games. So first one that jumps out, we mentioned it just by happenstance, but Fire Emblem Awakening. Little fun fact, but am I going to ruin your game? But this was supposed to be the last Fire Emblem. This was like Fire Emblem never sold that well in the West. It wasn't as big in Japan as like other franchises were. So when they made this game, they're like, we're going to make this, like the best Fire Emblem we can. You could tell like this game was like special to the people that made it. And when it came out, it was like a smash hit. It's the thing that brought Fire Emblem like on the map in the West. Because before this, it used to just be like a weird game no one ever played, like the GameCube and the Wii games, which are awesome, by the way. Those are great. But yeah, Fire Emblem Awakening is like a super special game. It's like it is up there in like one of the best games ever made.
Yeah, it's surprising it did so well considering like I guess the 3DS at this point I don't think had really gained its momentum. Maybe this was part of that, the upswing.
I think at this point, like Mario Kart has come out and like 3D Land, so I think it was just helping it.
It was for those serious gamers,
Yeah,
they don't like Mario. They need something cool with swords.
for sure. And the last year into this year, this was a very good year for 3DS. But yeah, Fire Emblem. The way the mechanics work with the relationships, the story, like everything just fires on all cylinders. The music in that game is so incredible. Oh my god. And
the writing is like okay.
It's okay. Yeah, sure, but that's always been Fire Emblem.
Yeah, that's true.
But I just like the whole setup, like the end of the world scenario and your kids teleporting back from the future to help you in battle. It's wild. Like the story's kind of crazy. Some time travel in Fire.
Yeah, even with you like the specific like gender. Sorry, like depending on if you choose male or female protagonists, you can like alter like the story and like its events a bit. It's kind of cool that way.
It's just like a really special game, and it's still the best Fire Emblem game they put out since. There's been a lot since then, but this is where it really started in the West. So Fire Emblem Awakening, it's one of the best games ever made. Like, what more can I say? It is.
Around this, a couple of years later, like after all this, of course, after 2013, I got into like the hold on, I want to talk about this real quick. I got into like, the existence of like Sly Cooper being a thing. And Sly Cooper Thieves in Time came out like this month in February. And I never got into it, but I've always been interested in it.
It's the last. It's
not made by the same developer. It's not made by some developer that I think did Secret Agent Clank.
Yeah. So I played this game, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time.
How was it?
Yeah,
it was good. I liked it. It was good. Yeah, it was a good game. It was like
I love the trilogy.
If you liked the other Sly Coopers, this is totally like right up there with them. So they did a good job. It was a cross-play. It was actually a cross-play Vita game, Vita and PS3 game.
Gotcha.
So yeah, Sly Cooper Thieves in Time is really good.
Do they ever like do like a pack, a trilogy pack for Sly Cooper?
Yep, on the PS3.
Did they ever come to PS3?
That's where I played it for the first time. It was a PS3.
Yep.
Like, so is Sly Cooper accessible today, like in our current generation?
No. Not maybe if you like went on the cloud.
You can play that awful version.
Okay,
which is not how you want to
actual
play
ports. No, okay.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
But yeah, so Sly Cooper Thieves Time, that was really good. Oh, man, dude, the name of that developer's is like right off the tip of my tongue. I know it's like a monkey, like that's
a monkey.
Yeah. But all right, cool. That's all I had to say. Anything else on this list jumping out at you guys? Because Metal Gear Revengeance was like a long time coming. Platinum /
I didn't play any of these games this month, but out of those, I would want to play Metal Gear Rising.
It's great, dude.
Yeah, I do too. Great. I have it. I just didn't play it.
Yeah, because the original Metal Gear Revengeance or Rising was going to be like an in-house Kojima Metal Gear game, and it got canceled. Like, it was in development for forever, and then it was announced that like Platinum was going to reboot it, and then it finally came out. So yeah, that game has like an interesting development history. But yeah, how about we move on to March? Let's no, I'm not going to say that. I was about to say let's march on, but I said it anyways. There you go. Yeah. All right. So this might be the most important event that happened in 2013. It was going to change gaming forever. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, the Ouya.
What is this?
Did you exactly, Izayah? Izayah under his breath. What is this? Is he serious?
Only reason why I asked this because like there was a specific console Towerfall came out on.
That's the one.
This is Ouya. Oh yeah,
wow! You better say thank you to the Ouya.
God bless you, bro. You made like one of the best multiplayer games that still never got updated ports that the Switch has.
So the Ouya was a crowdfunded Kickstarter console. That again, at this point, I don't know what it was. Maybe just games weren't selling, but they were like, "Oh my god, this is gonna like eat the PS3 and them's dinner because you can just buy this for whatever, like $100, and anyone can develop. Like this is gonna change gaming and bring mobile gaming to consoles." Dude, the talk behind this was like ridiculous. And when it came out, it's a piece of garbage. The controller was garbage. Like everyone who had hands on it were like,
"Looks awful,
dude. That controller is bad." And the one good thing to come out of it was Towerfall. Yeah,
Towerfall's peak.
Worth it.
God.
And people would plug in their DualShock 3s into the USB port on the back of it to play Towerfall, so they didn't have to use the controllers and have a decent D-pad. I remember that pretty specifically.
So did you buy one?
No.
Okay.
Never bought one. From literally the pre-release to the outset, this looked like a trash fire, and it was. Cool. Just a really bad Android console device that didn't run all that well, and developers really didn't like flock to it in the way they thought. And the store was really weird. Only developer I remember putting like games on it was Square Enix, where they were putting like their ports of their 3D DS games on there for like $40, $30, you know. Wow. So I was like, okay. So yes, Towerfall. That is the Ouya's legacy to me. So
wait a minute. If that's the case, didn't Towerfall come out in 2013 in that case?
No. Towerfall Ascension would be the first time it got off the Ouya, and that was on PS4 the next year, I believe.
I guess.
But did the original Towerfall, did it launch with the launch of Ouya?
I don't remember. I want to say
nobody played it, so
yeah, I would not know that. I just know it ended up being the killer app for the Ouya with good reason, because that game's so good. But yeah, let's jump into the games of March. For very first game, Tomb Raider, the reboot from Crystal Dynamics.
Did you have fun with that one?
I did. It was like Uncharted, and I really liked Uncharted at that point. And there were parts about the shooting and gameplay which I actually thought felt better than Uncharted.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Honestly, the gameplay that was never Uncharted's strong suit. But everything else around it, like the characters and the dialogue, like Laura herself was cool, but everyone else around her was so forgettable.
Yeah,
it's like that villain from Uncharted 1 times everyone.
Yeah. No, I'd say this is my favorite Tomb Raider game by far. I know a lot of people like the second one in this trilogy, but I like the first one better. It's more concise.
Yeah, what was I gonna say? I think the one weird turn with this game is she goes from like killing someone and like being really torn up about it, like throwing up, to like, and then 5 seconds later, it's like there's 20 dudes, take them down, and she's just like, oh yeah.
That's like the one thing I heard about that game a lot. It was
at least they tried.
Like, the inconsistency with her, with all that.
Yeah. And then
they wanted to show her before she became the action hero. They just didn't give it enough time to sit. It was really strange.
I think back then games were just like worried about boring players, you know, like the beginning. I know, like the beginning of Uncharted 4 would have never happened in 3. You know what I mean? Where you have that whole period just playing as like Nathan everyday dude. But if they'd really done that with Tomb Raider, that would have been so cool. Yeah, they really took their time. One thing I remember is the PS3 version had a scripting error, and so I couldn't finish it. Like these dudes that were supposed to come out of a gate wouldn't, and when I'd reload, like you'd hear people yelling and the music would come and nothing would happen. So I had to wait like a month or two later for a patch, and then I beat that game. I was literally in the last wave of enemies.
I think I played the PS4 version, so I don't think I had that problem.
Yeah. And the PS4 version came out like a year later and looked. I remember because I put both of them in at the same time and like found the same scene and like switched the inputs on my TV, and I was like, wow,
like Digital Foundry over there.
I was doing a Digital Foundry comparison. I was like, look at all the fog in this one, and now I'd look at that PS4 one and being like, man, that thing's at like 40 frames a second consistently. It's not great, but yeah. Oh man, see, the thing is, I don't want to keep talking, so why don't you guys pick another one? Because I do have another one on here.
Colton, did you play God of War Ascension?
I'm curious.
You know, I borrowed the game from, I can't remember who. I borrowed the game from somebody. I got halfway through and they wanted it back.
How was the first half?
You know, if I was able to beat it, I bet I would remember more of it, but I remember enjoying it. I cannot remember much about I remember more of that game, but that's for a different reason. I watched before Ragnarok came out, I watched like a playthrough,
going through the history of the game.
Yeah, and that's actually so it's kind of hard. I don't really know if I remember the game from when I actually played it or from that when I watched that recently. Yeah, but I remember enjoying it. I just can't remember much of it.
Yeah, it's the only one I never got to play. Kind of bummed about it, but I don't want to use PlayStation Plus Extra or Premium or whatever to play the cloud version.
So I got it. I played the multiplayer beta and I got it at launch, and I really enjoyed it. But both these, there's two games next to each other: God of War Ascension and Gears of War Judgment, and I remember them being compared a lot. They're just like, man, like, do we need this many sequels? Like, they felt like
are they both prequels?
Sequels. Gears of War Judgment, I think so. I believe they are.
Ascension is a prequel. Yeah,
Ascension is a prequel, and so funny. I actually really enjoyed Ascension, but more than the story, which I beat, and it was like one of those God of War games. It just the only reason it looked visually as good as it does is because it's the first God of War game that they capped at 30 frames a second instead of 60, so they could get a little more graphics out of it. So yeah, that's a 30 FPS game, which is interesting. But the multiplayer was actually really good. People ragged on it and didn't give it a chance, but it was really good. It had like this triangle system, kind of like when we were talking about Fire Emblem, between like grabs, parries, and like breaks and specials, and it was like a melee base game. Yeah, absolutely. It was like a cool kind of early. What's that Ubisoft game where you play as like different warriors? And...
Dude, For Honor.
Yes, yeah. It was very. It was like an arcadey For Honor. I played a ton of it. And another weird thing with God of War Ascension was there was a Last of Us demo tied to it. And the demo had a countdown on it that was like for a month or two later. So when you got God of War Ascension, there's like a little extras tier and you could hit the Last of Us and it would just show a countdown. And then 2 months later, it unlocked the first demo for the Last of Us. So you go into God of War Ascension, you go to extras, you hit it, and then it would take you to like this weird store backend, like the PlayStation Store backend, and then you could download the Last of Us demo. So yes, if you bought God of War Ascension, you could play the Last of Us demo later on, which is wild. But yeah, just a weird game. It's not very well. It's not remembered very fondly, but I remember really enjoying it, and it looked pretty amazing. So. Okay. Did you guys play Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon? Because I just like fell off.
I didn't play that year, but I have played it.
My long time like childhood friend played that game a lot. He really seemed to enjoy it. I think. One part I was like frustrated with it.
Yeah, I got a little bored with it, but that's because Luigi's Mansion's not my kind of
don't
game.
Don't say that.
So I'm sorry. We'll move on.
Shut up.
Okay, so the last big game, BioShock Infinite.
Yep.
So played it. Oh my god, the lore behind this development cycle is insane to me. They originally had like seven discs up to use of like space for this game. This game was gonna be huge, dude. They had a lot of potential. They had a lot of things like built up for this game. And
they had a tech demo that was totally smoke and mirrors. When they first showed this game, it looked incredible, and like the AI interactions with the enemies were like, man, this is unreal. And then much later on, you figured out that the developers were like, yeah, that wasn't actually a game. that version never came out. So yeah, long time in development. BioShock Infinite took forever, like years.
There's a great video on it about it on YouTube.
5 or 6 years, right?
Probably him, yeah, because like it really like gives like all these interviews about like the development cycle and how it's been, the art, all of it. It looks so cool. It got me excited. And around this time, or a couple years ago, me and my partner are like getting into BioShock 1, BioShock 2. He got into the DLC. We never got into Infinite because we knew like how weirdly like received that game has been. And I remember seeing my old stepdad play it years ago, like a decade ago. Yeah, 2013 probably. And it looked cool as a kid, but I don't know how it holds up, man.
BioShock Infinite at the time was like really well received, and people were really high on it. And I thought it was boring at the time. I thought it was boring, and as time has gone on, I think people really have turned against BioShock Infinite.
Yeah,
like there's story. There is story stuff in it that's like questionable. They're like, oh, that's kind of this day and age, oof. But as far as the art style still really holds up. Like the watercolor, kind of almost like Zelda Skyward Sword looking stuff. Like still looks really amazing. So visually, I think that's really held up. The acting, all that animation, all that stuff is really good. It's just the gameplay itself I found really tedious. And and like themes and stuff, people look back at it and like, maybe that game wasn't great. And I was like, I know. That's what I was saying that like the week I beat it, and now like 5 years later, I'm like, I know. Thank you.
It definitely seems like the series as a whole is a little bit overrated, considering most people only point to the first game as like
first game's great. The first game's great. Yeah.
Hey man, hold up. That second game's great. Don't give me
Minerva's Den is good.
Hate the second game.
Minerva's Den, the DLC they did for it, is better than that second game. But
I've only played the first game, to be fair.
Yeah. But yeah, that ended off March. So I don't know why I remember this month so clearly, but I remember watching all the videos on Infinite and God of War, and yeah. All right, cool. So that's March. And you can tell like This is like the end of the generation, so people are just trying to get their games out before the consoles go. This is like a really stacked year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Intense.
Which makes sense because the next year is not so stacked. It wouldn't have been. All right. So we're moving on to April, and this month the big thing that happened is Disney shuts down LucasArts.
And what were their
crazy?
Can you list me like some like their biggest projects real quick? I mean,
LucasArts, any Star Wars games. They did all the Star Wars games,
including the Lego ones.
Well, they did adventure games too, like
they were probably partnered for the Lego ones. They didn't develop, or like they probably like co-published or something.
Oh yeah, that was Traveler's Tale. That was Traveler's Tale. But you're talking like Battlefront, like the original Battlefront 1 and 2, like all those PS1 Star Wars games. Like, yeah.
Are they just a publisher? Because like Battlefront was,
I think they had
Pandemic Studios. I believe
they had developers. So okay, the thing I remember most is the E3 before they showed like an Uncharted type like Star Wars game that people were really hyped about. I forget the name of it. But
is it one that's like a year?
I don't remember. It never came out and people talked about it forever, you know, because they were really
like you're a bounty hunter.
Yes, yeah. You're like in a criminal organization. It looked like
1313.
Yes, Star Wars 1313. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I remember people being really bummed that got canceled because that was like the chosen one. But yeah, I remember being a bummer because I at this point I was like, oh, I guess this is Star Wars games, eh? And then later, Disney would make that deal with EA, which ended up being a waste of time, a waste of Star Wars games for about a decade. Yeah, what a bad decision, man. That whole Disney 10-year deal with EA. God, man.
Oh, yeah, we thought we had seen the worst year. Like, oh, LucasArts shuts down.
Yeah.
That's awful.
And LucasArts
just got worse.
Yeah, man. And they made like all the Star Wars games are very varied, you know. They're not all great. No, they're definitely not all great. But there was like a lot of variety and stuff. And then they gave it to EA and they're like, we'll make one shooter Star Wars theme thing a year. And you're like, great.
Having it exclusive to a publisher was just a mistake.
It's a bad, it was a bad plan. But all right. Oh my God, I forgot about Defiance. Let's go to games. The games of April. Oh my God, Defiance. I don't even want to talk about this game because too long. But can I just say this game's super weird? It came out. So Defiance was a Sci-Fi Channel TV show.
All right, you got 5 more seconds.
What?
Okay. Defiance is an MMO, like a Destiny, like a Destiny third-person MMO on PS3 and 360.
Okay.
And what was going to happen? The things in the game were going to change what happened in the Defiance show on Sci-Fi. So it was supposed to be like a cross-media like thing, and all I ever played of Defiance was the beta. Because it was free, and I was like, again, I had a lot of time on my hands. So I played probably about 15 hours of this game. And I thought it was really cool. Like, it was really wild to play on the PS3 and see a bunch of other people running around and doing stuff. Like, it was like an MMO, but really fast, I was like, I don't know what did I do all the missions? And it was just like weird side stuff. And I was like, oh, this game might not be good.
I need to see gameplay of this. What?
You'll have to look it up afterwards, but it's a really wild thing. It's Defiance. I think the TV show, I don't even know if it lasted a season. So.
Oh my gosh, I remember that show now. That was such a weird show. I've seen a couple episodes of that. That is so. I did not know they did a whole game thing on it.
Oh yeah. It was supposed to be a whole thing. But a much better game is Guacamelee.
Yeah. Me and my partner are playing that right now, and it's actually pretty fun. It's kind of simple as a Metroidvania, but like it has a lot of love and a great art style. It's brimming with it too. I have to give props to these developers and what they're doing with this game so far from what I played, and just the amount of love and passion they have for like other developers in the indie industry, like Castle Crashers. Of course, like there's some other homages like Mario. It's really sweet. It's a fun game. Y'all should check out Guacamelee, guys. Like listeners. Go check it out.
Drinkbox Games. They just did. What was the game they just did last year?
Nobody Saves the World.
Nobody Saves the World.
That was one of your games, Josh, last year, right?
It was.
You hated it.
My list.
Yes. Yes,
listener, listen to us.
Stop talking about how much he hated that game. Yeah, I like Guacamelee. Guacamelee 2 is pretty unforgettable. So this first one, I think there's really good versions of it on like every console possible. So yeah, check out Guacamelee. Great game.
It's fun. It's cool.
Okay. Anything else on this list jumping out to you guys?
I really like Injustice.
Yes, I was gonna say the same thing.
Just great. Agreed.
Injustice 2 was whatever, but Injustice, the first one was like, it had a cool story, and I wasn't really allowed to play Mortal Kombat that much because it was really bloody. So it was a nice alternative.
Dude,
Superheroes.
Yep. Last year was the first time I played through Mortal Kombat 9, 10, and 11, and then its DLC on a row. Dude, I can't. The production value on 11's story is mind-blowing. That game looks so good and is so well written and acted, and I never knew, dude. I never knew. Oh my god.
Super
Mortal Kombat is so cool. Yeah. And that story, it's like one of the best stories I've played in a game in like 2 years. I was just like super late on all of it. So yeah. Really good.
What about Injustice though? How do you feel about Injustice?
I like Injustice and I like the story. Also, my save file got corrupted when I tried to start a new game to go to another chapter. That sucked. So I think I beat it when it came out to PS4, like the year following the story mode. But yeah, good game.
Last thing I want to mention is Lego City Undercover. The chase begins on a 3DS.
Get out.
Hold on, let me cook.
On a 3DS?
Is that the 3DS version or is that the Wii U? Are they named the same thing?
They probably launched together.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, the 3DS. It says the 3DS, that specific title. Yeah. I liked it. I played it. I got really far in the game. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't know there's an end to it. Because at some point, I was just like, what happens next? I don't know what happened. Like, at some point, I just got derailed from the story. And I was like, as a kid, I was just like, I guess I'll go back playing Dream Drop Distance.
Yeah, it was like GTA. Well, at least the Wii U version was like GTA, but Legos. So
this is my bad.
I want to point out. Oh, what's up?
Oh, in March, I think that's when the Wii U version launched.
Okay.
Not important.
I do want to point out though, the Wii U came out the year prior. I got it in December, so right before this year started, and just noticed the complete lack of big Wii U games for your new Wii U console.
Launch years can be really rough.
They can be rough, but man, dude, we're not gonna get to a Wii U thing till like the end of this year. That's all.
I think we get Wind Waker HD this year, though.
That's what I mean. So. I remember Wind Waker HD being like, finally, a game for this thing. I was using it to watch a lot of anime through the web browser, which it had a really good web browser. Yeah, it had a really great web browser, by the way. But okay, cool. So I think that covers this year.
No, April.
Yeah, so no, end of the. No, I'm kidding. This month, sorry. So let's look at May. And May. Man, I didn't realize it was such a long time between the PS4 review and the reveal and the Xbox One reveal.
Yeah.
Like, man, dude, I bet.
Toes were curling, bro.
Well, I was going to say, that's probably all people talked about for 2 months was just being like, well, PS4's this. I bet the Xbox is this. And yeah. But yes, May 21st to 23rd, the Xbox One is revealed. And the first thing they do is they show the console. They had this big old like edited thing where they're showing it from different angles.
It's big old brick.
Like big old VCR. I can't do the favorite thing about that original Xbox One is how big it is. And then the power brick. There's still a power brick, external power brick that's just as big as like an entire like Xbox Series S. Like
it's amazing.
Bludgeon someone with
huge.
This. Dude, they really did not want the red lights of death to happen, and they really made sure of it. So yeah, this was a PR nightmare for Xbox. Immediately. I watched this thing live. Yeah, dude. This is the reveal. Wow. This reveal, they don't show any games till about 40 minutes in. The first thing they decided to show.
What do they talk about for 40 minutes?
TV. Literal,
that's right. You're right.
Literal TV. So the way the UI worked originally is super different from what the later UI would be. And you had like 3 different modes almost, like a TV mode, a game mode, and something else. But yeah, dude, it was them like Skyping each other on their Xbox with the Kinect camera, him yelling at it to show him sports. And then when they finally decided to show a game, it was just Call of Duty Ghosts. and then it was over. Dude, they talked about TV for about TV and apps, and it being like the box in your living room for like an hour and a half, barely talked about games. And immediately people were like, what? What is this thing? And just before, I don't think at this point they said the word DRM or any of that stuff wasn't known yet. But it was like later in the month, right before E3, when people are like, they're not going to let you use games and all this other stuff. It was beginning.
Oh, the fear mongering.
Man, yeah. The Titan. This was the Titan starting to topple for Xbox in the US.
It wasn't just fear mongering. Like, it was true. Like, that was their plan. That's awful.
Yeah, dude. There's a reason. The PlayStation 4 is a great console. But there's a reason it did so well. It's just because Xbox did so bad. Everything went right for PlayStation. Everything went wrong for the Xbox One.
I'm sorry. I thought like what you were saying right during about this presentation, right? About the TV shit, like excuse my language, but like I genuinely thought like this is fear mongering. Of course, people are gonna be like after this review are like they're only gonna do apps, but the fact that was actually planned. This is actually planned.
Oh yeah, dude! Like this conference. Well, okay, no, they had games. It was still a gaming machine, but it was not how it was marketed or focused.
Okay.
Like during the 360, they saw at the end, they're like, well, not a lot of people are playing games, but they sure are watching a lot of Netflix on this console. And they just totally misjudged the market. Like, we said, like, people were getting bored of their PS3 and 360s. They weren't buying as many games. They were all sequels, like almost, And so they just read the tea leaves all wrong, and it shows. Like, it showed. So yeah, that conference was a disaster. I think, like, Digital Foundry does like a look back where they watch it together. And they comment over it. Like, watch it with like someone commenting over it. You don't have to watch the straight thing because it's that boring. But it is a very interesting thing to look back on, and you can just see it. You're just like, man, if only they knew what they were doing. Oh God, Josh, do you remember the dude's name? The guy that was head of Xbox at that point, that they like fired almost straight up after.
No, I don't
really. Whoa.
Yeah.
They're like, Phil Spencer, go fill his shoes.
Phil Spencer was the head of the game studios at this point. He was not head of Xbox. I was about to say Mark Cerny. All right. So that was the Xbox thing. They showed the console, and literally everything after that was a nightmare. So yeah. Oh, so let's do games. Games. Yeah, games. Hey, Fez is cool. Fez is awesome.
Yeah. I was gonna say I had this my laptop before crapped itself, but it was fun to play. It was really cool the way you like mess around with like its environments. The way you kind of like flip around your like screen. It was kind of fun. It was a cool game for a little bit that I played.
I got to witness a lot of Fez. I did not get to play a lot of Fez, but I probably saw like 7 hours of that game get played like in front of me, and it was fun to watch. I'm sure it was fun to play too, but
also, I mean, I don't want to spoil Fez. I guess I don't know.
It's too smart.
Fez is like The Witness, where little did you know that there's an entire secret game behind it. So there's an entire language that's on walls and stuff that is hinted towards you, and once you know that, it like breaks the game wide open, because it just looks like a platformer, like a puzzle platformer, but it's actually a lot more than that.
But you're not going to be able to read it.
There's like witness. Yep. You have to decode. You have to decode a language in Fez, and it never tells you that.
Yeah, because you're not doing the decoding in the game. You'd have to actually like get a piece of paper, right? Like
and it never explicitly tells you that.
What the hell?
It gives you a hint by stuff in the environment, And yeah, so it's kind of a cool game in that way. And there wasn't a lot of stuff doing stuff like that.
That really piqued my interest, I'm not gonna lie.
I'm curious. When you break open this code, what happens? Do you get like
the PS4 becomes a PS5?
So when you break open the code, like stuff written on like walls in the background and stuff give you like directions and like hints, and like you actually know what to do. Like puzzles that seemed really abstract all of a sudden have directions. And there's a QR code in that game also, back when like phones were just getting that sort of thing.
QR codes were
in the game. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, Fez is wild, and there'll never be another one because the creator is apparently not a great dude, and he literally rage quit Fez 2 because he got so much flack from people. That's something that
remember hearing a lot about the Fez.
Phil Fish. Yeah.
Phil Fish. Oh yeah, that name. Oh man. Okay, that's fun.
Also,
name.
You guys, I just want to throw it out here. Josh, you might know a little bit more about this, but what do you guys know of Fuse?
I've heard a lot about this game. I think
you have.
Really?
That's interesting.
Just the name being thrown around a lot. Like,
who do you think made Fuse?
An electrical current?
No.
What's up? No.
Electrical. Okay, no. I'm thinking of a different game. Go on.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, there's no way you've heard a lot about Fuse.
I pre-ordered this game because this game was
it's EA.
developed by Insomniac, published by EA.
This is an Insomniac game.
Oh, I see it.
I canceled my pre-order before it came out.
For good reason. Okay, so this is Insomniac's first game that wasn't published by Sony or Universal. This was their first multi-platform game. So it was coming to PS3 and 360. When they originally announced it, it was called Overstrike.
Yep.
And Overstrike had a really cool art style. It had like this kind of like 70s like throwback spy mission vibe. It looked like it was gonna be like a cool co-op game. And through development and because of like a lot of play testing and stuff, what came out of the other end was the most generic looking,
I'm looking at it now, very
feeling
generic
game ever. And that's Fuse. And yes, pretty much
it looks like Andromeda before Andromeda.
Absolutely. Pretty much Overstrike was focus test to become Fuse, a much worse and more boring game. The shooting was kind of fun. It was trying to do like a Gears of War thing, like Fuse itself, and the horde mode was pretty cool in the way the powers kind of combined with each other. Like there was a good idea there, but man, I want you guys to look at the cover art of Fuse real quick. Just do me a favor.
I'm looking at it right now.
Tell me what you think about that cover art.
I'm thinking this is like the Transformer movies being remade around this time. Like the live action movies. This reminds me of
they
that.
were just coming out.
Yeah. This is that same vibe.
My favorite thing about that cover is it looks like it was a full cover and someone like zoomed in a little too far.
What is up with that?
Their heads are cut off.
I want nose and below, nothing above.
Like when I say like everything was focus test to death, and I mean, while you guys are doing, look up Overstrike. This is what this game was originally supposed to be. People out there, if you're listening, sorry, but if you have something in front of you, look up Overstrike Insomniac, and you will just see the difference. Like this is how this game was originally announced.
You can see the faces.
And a funny thing, I mean, you can see the faces in the game too. They're not just cut off. But the wild thing is that they have a mission in their next game, which was Sunset Overdrive. Well, I don't know I think that was probably their next game, where there's a whole mission where they're making fun of like big publishers, like having them like over focus test something, and it keeps becoming worse and worse and worse, and people are saying like that's them. They did a mission in Sunset Overdrive, kind of like copying their experience they had making Fuse. But yeah, just a little weird footnote from Insomniac. Super forgettable game.
And then they learned their lesson. They're like, no more multi-platform games ever.
I guess not. Yeah, you're right.
wait. So like, what they did was for Overstrike, they over tested the game.
Yeah, because EA focus tested it, and people were like, "Oh, I want the shooty bang Call of Duties," and Fuse came out the other end.
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
It's a bummer. Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, that's just a weird footnote for Insomniac. All right. Oof. Let's do June, and then. Or you guys want to take a quick break?
This is gonna be a real chunker. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a big chunker, but we're through June. We're almost through the year, so
hey, we're
gonna take a break. Yeah, we're gonna take a quick break and stick with us.